I was saying is this camera basically has three main problems. One, the mirror gets stuck, so you should be able to look through the viewfinder, but you can't when the shutter is primed. Also, there's something wrong with the linkage down here. I took it apart and I cleaned it, and also up here there's a little tiny spring under this that I might have to take out, and that should be able to press the shutter. And the third problem is the self-timer. A lot of the times the self-timers do break, so if you're going to buy a rangefinder with, I call them unibody lenses, but they're technically, I think they're SLRs or something, but you can't remove the lens. Be careful with the self-timer, because taking that apart and replacing the self-timer is way harder, and it basically makes the camera useless on rangefinders or viewfinders with unibody lenses. Okay, so there are a few videos on YouTube of people taking these apart, but I haven't seen anyone really tackle exactly what the issue is with this. So there's two screws on the back that go like that. And then you have to take off this battery box, or battery plate, sorry. And that can be done with a screwdriver or a coin. And if you notice, this top plate is actually bent. So around the viewfinder, it actually sits sideways, and on the lugs where the strap goes, it sits sideways as well. It was like this when I got it, but when I had it off the first time, I had trouble getting it back on, but I think I'm gonna have to bend it back, or at least do a better job than what I did. And this is my first time working on a camera. I have worked on this in the past, but I haven't really worked on too many cameras, mainly just watches. These are actually watch tools, but I haven't broke it yet, so. Alright, the next thing that you have to do in order to take off the top plate is that you have to get one of these, or if you have a watch tool, basically a really, really small one of these. And then that takes out this. And that's the same thing for the ISO or ASA dial. And as you can see, I probably had this apart because I bent it multiple times. Maybe they just come like that. I have no idea what those little tiny brass plates actually do. Also be careful with the ASA dial. This is currently set at 30. So you put it back at 30. Then there's a little brass plate right here that might come off when I do this. But bottom opens up. You don't lift up the film rewind lever in order to take it out. You open this up, and it just screws off like this. pops down. And then this locks back into place. Now, I don't know if I said this earlier in the stream or not, but I bought this for $10. You can pick them up for around $10. Even better condition than this, but and you gotta be careful. But most of the times you will find them. Also, vintage cameras will have other issues regarding the battery. For example, this Minolta only fires if you have a battery in it, and there's like a conductor down here or something, and that always goes bad. And this I got in a lot for $20 with lenses and a bag. I kept the bag and the lenses, but this, it wouldn't even like sell for $5. These are really cheap. It's a good film camera if you can get it as a beginner. Now, in order to take off this shutter count dial, that's your film advance lever locking plate. I really don't want to take this off, but I'm going to try. So there's 4 Phillips screws on the plate. 1, every time I get a screw stuck in something like this or a watch, it takes like 5 minutes just to get it out. I'm just going to pull it off, and if it's not down there, then I'm going to have to turn it over. It's a really tight screw. So a little history on this camera. These were made, I believe, in 1967. 1967 to 1968 in Japan. The QL stands for quick load. And if you open up the back, there's a film leader that leads the film into... Well, that's clean. So basically what this does, that moves back and forth like that. So if this is not the issue, then it could reside in here because every time I advance the film, I can hear this priming itself, which it shouldn't be doing even if it was at like 1/1000th or like 1/30th, but it like primes itself for some reason, and then I have to wind it farther ahead. But there's a lot of dirt in there. So another thing that's bad on this camera is this view finder in here. It keeps popping out. Which doesn't really affect anything, it's annoying. Because it doesn't sit on there straight. So Canon also made an FTB. This is an FT, and I believe there's a lot more wiring that leads to the light meter. This is an all-mechanical camera. That Minolta that I had out earlier, that's all electronic. So underneath of this is a little tiny pin that I think you have to get this onto, or else it won't reset to 0, or to 0. The cool thing about these, well, any film camera, is that when you open this, yeah, there we go. So that resets it to 0, and you can go up to 36 exposures. Open it up, and back to 0. And that, for anyone who is wondering, is this, I believe. So since that didn't work, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the bottom plate and try to clean that again. And I'll show the issue. And if I can't fix it, I'm not going to be taking off the front plate because this is still a pretty good camera. I've shot a roll on it. And maybe I'll just sell it, maybe I won't. But still, I'm not that advanced to where I'm comfortable enough to take off that front or back plate. I don't remember it sitting sideways like that. There we go. Another popular film camera made by Canon is the AE1 and AE1 program, and also the F1, I believe. I've never had one of those owned or sold, but they are a very good beginner camera. I think they're kind of a lot like the Minolta X700, or like an 80s Minolta. I believe they came out in the 70s sometime. But that, I believe, relies on batteries, so it is less mechanical than this one. Yeah, see, I still have to prime that a little bit more. But you can hear it, like when I go to wind this. I think that's the self-timer mechanism priming itself for some reason. I don't know why they do that, but that basically, like I said, it sits right here. And I've had this off before, but I've never inside of it. But you have to take off basically this. There's some like soldering over here, which I have barely done, so I'm not gonna do that. Take off the bottom plate and everything. This also comes off the shutter button, but you don't have to take it off. The first time I took this off, I had it off. This is how I put it on last time. So if there's any issue with it, then that must have knocked something. So normally when you go on eBay or any other site where you can buy used stuff, some people mention that they have a sticky mirror. I really don't know what that means technically, but I believe what they're referring to is this. And as you can see, you can't look through it. So now knowing that, and now repairing, or at least working on one of my first cameras, I now know what that means. So when you go to list something online, make sure that your mirror stays down until you fire the shutter, because you're not looking at anything through the viewfinder. You're just going to be out of focus if you try to refocus it. And never leave it primed, because there's tension on the springs that are down here and up here and throughout the body that could break. And considering that this is from the 60s, that would not be good. So this is the quick load system. Not all Canons have it. For example, here is a Canon Canonette. And this one has the same problem where it's locked. This doesn't have the quick load system. See, that plate doesn't want to sit on the body, and you can even tell right there. Now, if I were to sell this camera in this condition, I would make my money back, basically. The $10 that I spent on it. And maybe I could get 30 out of it. It would really just be the lens, which I have sitting on another table. But in working condition, some people do list them for like $150, but I think if you were gonna get a good example one, I would pick one up for $60 if you were gonna use it a lot. They aren't as desirable as a AE one, but they are cool. So when this was first made, I believe it was marketed as a semi-amateur professional film camera. And this would have competed with, at the time, late 60s, maybe an early Nikon. I don't know if those came out in the 70s though, like the F-series Nikons. Another thing is, if you're going to take apart something and then list it online to sell, describe it as much as possible, and also say that you did have it apart, or say that you had someone take it apart basically, because then you'd really just be harming yourself at that point, because I am no professional watchmaker or camera repairman. So I always keep that in mind when I lift something. I was able to get it on there somewhat. I don't like how it sits though. It's only threaded halfway on. I don't know if it's sideways, but the body's sideways. It's bent right there. It looked like that when I bought it. So moving on to the bottom plate. In order to take this off, 1, 2, 3. Another thing that goes bad on these old cameras is the light seal. And that basically prevents the film from being exposed from any outside sources. So this is the bottom plate, made in Japan. That's basically all it says. The film door lock, film release rewind button, and then your tripod or mounting stand. So when you prime the shutter, it's this series of gears over on that side. And basically what I noticed is that this screw should, when primed, sit right there where it's sitting. So my hand is currently holding the shutter open, not the shutter, the film advance lever all the way. And at this point, I'm able to hit the shutter button and fire it. But now it doesn't sit on that anymore. Okay. But now my hand's off of it. It sits right there. So what my thinking was to take this spring off, take this flathead off, and then move this washer looking thing like a little bit forward. But I know that's not what you have to do, because that just seems really excessive just to like get it right there. So right now I'm holding down the shutter button. And you can see I titled the stream Advanced Linkage. This is part of your advanced linkage. So when I hit the button, this pushes it up, pushing this out. And then when I wind it, this is connected to it, I believe. Winds this, pushes this back. There's just something over here. I believe that, I don't know what that does. There's no diagrams online for these either, so. And that's when it's fully primed. Now there's two ways that I thought about I could fix this. One, move it like I said, or there's this little tiny plate. I don't know if this is supposed to sit on this rod right here or not, but when you move this, it doesn't really trip the shutter. It just, this is meant to like lift that up or hold it in place. But if I move this, no, it doesn't want to work anymore. Yeah, but basically this moves. I don't know if that's weak. It might be too weak to push it. That's, so where I have it sitting right now is how it should fire. Now I just don't know how to fix this. I would put oil in it and clean it some more, but I already cleaned it. And the only oil that I have is watch oil. Well, it's actually clock oil. So that could work, but it could ruin it. But as you can see, this is already pretty clean. There's also another series of gears over here that gets really gunky. And normally this gunk is oil, over 50-year-old oil, lubricating oil. And if you don't want that to happen, hot and cold temperatures, basically just let that stuff just sit and move around. And also probably how it was stored. But even if I wasn't able to fix it, I can still use it, and hopefully if you have one of these that you're going to fix, sell, or keep, you can learn something from this video, because these should be used. They are a great piece of history. See ya.